So when I read this text, the first thing that really stands out to me are Jesus' words to his mother. In verse 4, when he says, "Woman, what concern is this to you and me? My hour has not yet come." I think in initial reading, this sounds like Jesus is kind of being sassy with his mother. Like, let's be honest here. And when I researched this more, it just reads that way because that's the way it translates into English. In Greek, the word used here is actually the same one that Jesus also uses to address his mother when he places her in the care of one of the disciples when he's being crucified. So in this context, in John 19, verse 26, he says, "Woman, here is your son," giving her to the disciples' care to make sure that she's cared for after he dies. So today, we would almost never address someone that we are showing respect to using this phrase. We would change woman to maybe ma'am, or a more archaic my lady. Or better yet, maybe we would swap it out with a word who shows who that person is to us directly through a relationship. So maybe it would change to, "Mom, what does them running out of wine have to do with you and me?" So if we take that translation with a grain of salt and understand that it's just the translation that makes it sound like that, Jesus really isn't being rude to his mother. We can ask a question. But before we ask that question, I kind of want to take a little aside and mention how thankful I am that it's just the translation that causes the perceived rudeness and not Jesus himself. Because can you imagine having Jesus being rude to his mother as an example? What would Jesus do? I know I made that 90s reference. Get over it. Well, Jesus did get snarky with his mother in John 2, verse 4. Guaranteed someone would have that memorized specifically for that argument. And I know this because I'd probably be one of them when I was younger, maybe even now. But we clear that up, so we can't really use that as an excuse. So what's Jesus really saying here then? Weddings were huge social occasions, similar to how they are today, but to run out of wine would have been totally unacceptable thing to have happen. It would be the talk of the town. People would be saying things like, "Remember those two that got married in Cana? Which ones? I don't remember their names, but the ones that ran out of wine. Oh yeah, how embarrassing." But the social stigmas aside, Jesus' question asks Mary what the wedding running out of wine has to do with the two of them. But in my mind, I think Jesus already knows what the answer to this question is. But he wants to see what Mary is going to do with the situation. And what does Mary do? Mary chooses to help the people hosting the wedding. But she does this not by going out and searching for more wine or, just placing the blame on them for not planning ahead. Hey, you should have had more wine. You knew how many people were coming, probably. She helps by effectively asking Jesus for help and putting that action back on him. And this is something really profound that I think we miss a lot of times when we're reading the text. It's profound because Mary has faith that Jesus will set things right, even though when compared with who Jesus is, because Mary may not have 100% view of who Jesus is at this point and what he will do in the future, but she at least knows Jesus' relationship with God to a certain extent. And that's a pretty huge thing compared to asking him with help at the wine at a wedding. And it also shows Mary's willingness to help others. But even more so, Mary sets an example for asking God for help even when the situation isn't a full-blown crisis. Jesus and Mary were not going to suffer really in any way because the wedding ran out of wine. Yet she asked. And I think it's a natural human thing for us to want to handle as much as we possibly can with the thought in mind that we're going to do it on our own. It's okay to ask for God for help in times where there's something catastrophic happening. But the day-to-day stuff, that's on us. And that sounds silly when we actually verbalize that. But I know at least my own internal voice tells me that all the time. You should be able to handle the schoolwork. You should be able to handle the busy work schedule, no matter how many hours it demands of you. should be able to handle everything that comes up with your family and friends. Oh yeah, and handle all of these things at once. Keep a good balance between them. Got it? Good. Why is this the story that we tell ourselves? Because we're not alone. We never have been. Part of what this text tells me is that it's absurd for me to rely on God for the big things that emerge and feel like I can't reach out to God for the small everyday things too. This text is famous for Jesus turning water into wine. It's probably one of the most famous miracles in the entire Bible. John uses the word sign because instead of miracle here because it's a sign that shows who Jesus is. But Jesus turning water into wine doesn't show who Jesus is simply because he has the power to change something physically from one thing to another. It also points to who Jesus and God are in relationship to humanity because of God's willingness to enter into human situations, be present with us, and love us. And at times, we may think that God doesn't want to be bothered with stuff we think is small from God's perspective. But here, in this story, God shows us, yes, I am concerned with these things. I am here with you. I'm here with you in the midst of your busy schedules. I'm here with you no matter what your struggle is, big or small. I'm here with you at a wedding when you run out of wine. I'm here with you when you're frustrated by the little stuff. Because the little stuff is not so little when it's somebody that you love. So I've always enjoyed photography. And I'd been saving up for a camera for years and years, but it always seems like, whenever I got close to being able to get the upgraded camera, something would take priority over getting it, so it got put on the back burner. Well, long story short, my parents ended up buying me the camera that I've been looking at forever. And the camera itself is a small thing compared to experiences in life. And I'm sure I could focus on the camera and its physical attributes. I mean, it's a cool camera. It does cool stuff. It's got all the features. I could go on and on about why this particular camera was the one I selected after researching for hours and hours. I am kind of a techie, let's be honest. But it's not the physical object. It's not about the camera's function or how good of pictures it takes or how good the technical specs look on paper. It was about what giving this gift said about my parents supporting me in everything that's going on in my life. And if humans are capable of understanding that the little stuff is not so little when we love one another, how much more then must God know that? And not only know that, but promise to be present with us even when these little things come up. So maybe watch Mary and learn from her faith and invite God into all the places into our lives, not just the big ones. And may we never cease to be amazed at the work God does as we do so. Amen.